Alright then, now that the power is back on, I figured really quick I would just do a very silly Christmas light demo just for fun. So I'm going to go through, where am I going, and make a curve, and I'm just going to pretend that, you know, these Christmas lights are maybe draped on something. Yay, Christmas lights. And I know ahead of time that I'm going to need to rebuild this curve, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Did that actually rebuild? It did. Cool. And then I'm just going to go ahead and make... I don't know, but my Christmas lights always get like really gross, like with the cables get like super messed up, and it's very annoying. But I'm going to go ahead and actually I'll move these farther apart. Do a mesh combine the same way that we did for the curve snap, darn you. Aha, there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and shrink this object aggressively because it is ginormous. Going for like thinner Christmas wires. So the Christmas wires are going to be a little bit weird in the sense that, like, I guess normally when you would have Christmas lights, they'd sort of be attached. Great. They would sort of be attached into the wires, like there's, you know, like the cable would separate a little bit, and I am just gonna shamelessly ignore that because frankly effort, and this is just a silly demo, so yeah. To go ahead and just do a mesh display reverse on this, and then we're going to go ahead and make our trashy little Christmas lights. And when I make these trashy little Christmas lights, I am going to build them in a few different parts. And you can just, I mean, you could very easily make these as a single piece. I just don't want to. I prefer texturing multiple pieces of stuff. I just think it's easier to deal with. So that's how I'm going to build these. So I'm just going to go ahead and just blatantly kind of wing this. I'm just adding edge loops as I go because, once again, I'm a very lazy person and I don't like doing it after the fact. So I'm just kind of defining the sort of little plastic thing that's going to hold the light. And basically I need to find, since I'm not doing the traditional way of like mounting this into the wire, I'm just going to add this little sort of like nub thing here, and that's just going to be how this attaches into the, that is going to be how this thing attaches into the light fixture itself. And apparently these are ginormous Christmas lights. I will shrink this ever so slightly. So I'm just going to kind of duplicate that and then drag it up a little bit, and I'm going to just repurpose this for the Christmas light itself. And I am going to go through, and this is going to look a lot nicer if this thing is a little bit hollow, so that's how I'm going to build this. So I'm just going to kind of extrude this up in the shape that maybe vaguely resembles a awkward bulb of some sort. So there's going to be a few parts to this Christmas light. There's going to be basically the, what the heck? There's going to be the bulb, this little plastic doodle thing, and then I'm just going to extrude this whole piece and push it in a little bit, and this is going to be like the glass part. And then I'm going to throw some kind of weird little dot or something inside of this that is going to be... Did I mesh display reverse that? That's going to be the actual light source for these bulbs. And I'm going to actually save this, apparently just on my desktop because I'm feeling like a bad person. Christmas light, version 1. For some reason I'm just like, this is going to crash. Like, I feel it, it wants to crash. Who knows, but I am suspicious. And what I said, there's going to be a little light bulb in this. I'm going to do something really weird and just make this where am I going? Good lord. I'm trying to make a mesh light here, except I've gone insane and am, for some reason, losing my mind. Alright, so if this is like our crappy little, that's like our crappy little filament thing. I'm gonna make the radius like 0.3, 0.7, let's do 0.5. And then subdivision coil, I need like 6. I do not need 50. I am not I'm a crazy person, but I'm not crazy for high poly. Alright, so we're just gonna do these, drag these down, and then very awkwardly sort of scale those in. It's a gross way to do things, but this is a gross demo. So this is what we have for our weird coil. I'm gonna go ahead and zero that out, so it should put it pretty much just in the middle of our mesh, and I can scale that up a little bit, and now we have a very awkward little filament thing. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do now is assign these assorted materials. I'm just gonna go ahead and zero all these out. I'll group these, called bulb base, and I'm gonna label the individual parts because I'm feeling organized. Holder, glass, and filament. Alright, so I'm gonna throw some new materials on these, and you can throw materials on these after they've been put in the MASH network, but if you do it beforehand, it'll sort of keep, and I'm deleting history as I go, it'll keep the information from that bulb. So I'm just gonna make this, I'm gonna say, what the heck, these are gonna be red Christmas lights. I don't know, I'm feeling that's gonna be super aggressive looking. It's gonna be really weird. Filament, I'm just gonna go ahead and assign that a new material. Again, presets. Be really lazy and just do chrome and make that a tiny bit rough. And then the holder and this, I'm gonna actually give the same material, and this is just gonna be like crappy green wire because that is what these are, basically, is just crappy green wire. I have this weird green apparently here, and I'm just gonna mess with that a little bit to make it more trashy and Christmassy feeling, and I just changed the specular color. I was like, where's my tabs are wrong. Alright, so that should actually be white. The only thing that really has different specular color is metal, and I'm gonna make that pretty significantly rougher. Alright, so now we have our trashy Christmas light, and we're going to set up a MASH network for this, and whether or not this is going to work, I honestly don't know, but I'm curious, so let's do the things. Alright, so you want to grab, in this case I'm grabbing the whole group, and that's fine for MASH, so do MASH, create network, and you can see that now we have this lovely little weird populated thing. And it's basically gone through and it's turned all of these into a single mesh, which is why I said it was easier to assign the materials previously. And you can always break these apart later, or like add, I think you can add color jitter in MASH. I've just never really found a use for if you wanted like multicolor lights. But either way, so what I'm gonna do is go through and play with the distribute a bit, grab the MASH, where am I going? MASH this thing, very specific, and I'm going to add a curve node, into which I will drag my curve. And now we have very badly populated Christmas lights. I'm just going to go ahead and also mess a little bit with the rotation of the object. So that's wrong, that's great. Cool. So we have this, and then we can throw these over the curve evenly, and that actually works out pretty nice. It's pretty cute looking. If I do say so myself, I am a fan of this. Cool, so I'm also just going to go ahead and like scale this down a little bit and maybe throw a few more lights on to the string thing. Stop with the lights. Oh god. The lag is real. Alright, so anyway, what I'm going to do now is just sort of go ahead and throw in a background of some sort. And that's going to be clipping halfway through a piece, so I'll just sort of do that. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and we're going to see how this renders. And frankly, I don't have a whole lot of hope that this is going to render nicely. For one, there's no lights in the scene. Where am I going? And mostly, actually, in this case, there's no lights in the scene. So what we can do, if we want to, there's like a few different ways you can handle this. So I wanted and I'm actually, oof, probably should have, cat, no, get off. Why are you doing this? I'm actually I'm gonna do two more things really quick. I'm going to, get crushed by my cat. And then I am going to shift all of these little objects down. And in this case, the shifting of the objects works because we did the mesh for the group. So if you move the objects within the group, it's going to modify the objects itself. I'm also going to go through and just like add a little bit of, I'll add a random node to here because I noticed all the filaments are facing the same way and I'm not a huge fan of that. So the heck with you and your stupid automatic messing with of the scale. Let's see. We could do a little rotation of the X. That actually looks like kind of nice. And sure, I'll do like 15 degrees on the Z just for a little bit of extra whatever. That was not the Z. What am I doing? What the? I keep grabbing the wrong sliders because I'm a crazy person. What? What? Fascinating. That's really weird, actually. Hang on, maybe it's just because I put a bunch of rotations and they're like somehow conflicting with each other. Clearly not Z. It's clearly not Y. It's also clearly not X. That's so questionable. Alright, what if we try freezing the... I've never actually seen this happen before. It's very weird. Would you just show me the stupid random node? Okay. Rotation Y. No. No. Fascinating. Alright, well either way, I'm just going to go ahead and add some randomness to this anyway, and just ignore the fact that all the filaments are pointed in the same stupid direction, which is going to bother me, honestly, for eternity. But this is what we have. We have strawberries hanging from a cable. So I'm going to go through, and my goal was basically to make the filament a mesh light. So this is a thing that I have actually not tried before. Oh, no. Alright, okay, so we need to do a few things. One, make the filament a mesh light. Gonna start out just doing that. Lights, mesh light. And I'm gonna set the exposure up to like 2 because I feel like I'll probably need to. And we're gonna go ahead and render this, and it's gonna look wrong again. And the reason this looks wrong is multifold. One, I need to make this stupid object not opaque. So if we do that, now we have a trashy looking mesh light. Oh, it's just rendering with the progressive refinement. Great. So we have a mesh light. Kind of looks Christmassy or something. I don't know. It's a light. So what we're also going to do is we need now a way to make the other stuff in the scene show up as a mesh light, right? Because this is basically its own separate mesh, so adding a mesh light to this is going to do nothing. So there's a few different ways we can do this. We can go through and grab this object and make it not opaque. And then if you wanted to make this a mesh light, you'd basically have to break the connection with mesh. So in this case, what I'm going to try, instead of making that a mesh light, is actually modifying the materials itself. So we have this filament material. There we go. Wait, no, that's the mesh light. Hold the thoughts. I'm just going to go into my Hypershade and find the thing because I don't know where the heck it is right now. Glass cable. And is this yes, this is my trashy chrome preset. So I'm going to try, instead of making this a mesh light, basically adding emission to it. Presumably these are not insanely bright. So if you were to go in and add emission, it would show up. We can see now we see the filament at least. And it just happens to be kind of being blocked out a little bit by the light. It looks like it's like being recolored. So that should be white, like right, like this is white. But it seems as though the overall object is sort of tainting it, or not tainting it, tinting it, which is actually quite interesting because normally these do show through. We do a weird thing and delete. Oh, fascinating. It doesn't delete it. That's kind of annoying. All right, interesting. So, anywho, not entirely sure why that's not showing up. I usually don't do mesh. I usually just do for modeling. I don't oftentimes do it for rendering. So, let me try doing a thing that I was hoping to avoid doing. And let me actually really quick see if they have like a mesh to polys, because that would be great. I don't think I've ever seen that before. I don't think I've ever actually needed to use it before, but anywho. So I'm just going to actually go ahead and just delete the history on this so that if you do anything to your mesh, it's actually no longer going to affect this object. And I'm just going to mesh separate these. It's going to be gross. Oh, good lord. And then just go, and this is why I was hoping to avoid doing this, because it's disgusting and it also makes it harder to edit in the future, which I'm always a fan of not doing. But basically go through and select all of these stupid lights. And I'm sure if anybody knows a better way to do this, please let me know, because that would honestly be delightful. So I'm going to go ahead and combine those and just say lights. And then we should be able to go in. And there's also a possibility, the distinct possibility actually, that in the mesh network, the emission was just not aggressive enough to show through the light. And if that was indeed the case, I am going to be a little bit salty about that. Because that would mean I just broke all of this up for no reason. And I probably should have just like set this to 6. And then it would have rendered. In which case, let's try this, because nobody wants to break up their mesh networks. Oh look, now it renders more stuff. Great. Okay, so let's do... That's irritating. I just destroyed my mesh network. Not that I'm going to use this for anything, but it's still kind of annoying. 300! 200, same difference. Question mark. Alright, so it does seem like this is behaving oddly, and in this case, it's probably because I didn't make my lights not opaque. And it's still being kind of trashy. For grins, I'm going to update my render view and see if that does anything. And it doesn't. Alright, cool. So, grumble grumble. It seems like I will be going through and hopefully they've ordered. Oh my god, they've ordered it. Yes. Yeah, no. Oh. Well, that's a bummer. It's actually kind of nice that they went and ordered it. So it's like the thing, then the filament, then the green thing, then the filament. So I could have gone through and grouped all these had I wanted to. But in this case, it seems like I'm able to just go through and select every other object, and that will automatically give me the green things versus the filament. So that is, I mean, it's not fun to have to do this, but it's convenient that it's ordered, I guess. Call that sockets and call all of these stupid things mesh combine. Delete the history, filaments. All right. And I am just going to go through, do the same thing I did before, and actually just turn these into mesh lights. All right, so let's see what that gives us. Probably something better, I would imagine, than what I had previously, I would hope. Or not. You gonna render anything? All right, perhaps I did set the exposure to 2 previously. Okay, so that is helping. I'm just gonna go ahead and show that original mesh. Whether or not that's actually updating, no idea. And But yeah, so now you have these very awkward little glowing Christmas light sort of shape things. 10. And now they're probably going to be, oof, really bright. But kind of a nice effect if you want. Yeah, yeah, that was honestly a little more maintenance than I was expecting to set up the light bit, but, you know, it works. The other option you could do is not have the filament inside and just make these little bulbs glowing. I just like the option when you're zooming in to be able to actually see that little filament inside. I think it's a nice touch. But again, if these are like way off in the background, you could shamelessly ignore that and it wouldn't matter. The only other thing that I want to try really quick, and I have absolutely no idea at all if this is going to work, is I would like to add some jitter to the color of this. And actually there's now a few different ways to do that. So Arnold has a color jitter node, which I have never had much success using, but I will show you where it is, should you want to use it. So if we go down and we just expand this glass, it shouldn't actually have anything really interesting here because I've not mapped anything into the color. AI color jitter. And this needs some kind of color to actually put in it, so I'll just do color. I think there's, maybe not, maybe there's actually not a, all right, so I'm just going to cheat and use a ramp. And I will map the ramp in. I'm basically just going to get rid of the color on the ramp. So I'll make this my red color. I think it was actually this red color. And I'm just going to delete that, so it's basically just a solid colored block. I'll throw the color into here and the out color into here. And within this color jitter, excuse me, there should be some variation where you can do like hue shifting and stuff like that. Again, oops, that was actually going into the wrong spot in my color. I threw that into the color and not the transmission color. So really quick, I'm actually just going to turn off transmission and we will look at whatever this thing is doing and see if we can figure out what this thing is doing. Wow, it'd be great if I could actually see that. Anyway, so yeah, just, you like mess with this, and like I said, I've never had huge amounts of control with this, so what I prefer to do, and this is like really kind of random, is I'm actually going to go through and use this same ramp, and I'll show you what it's doing in the color just so it's you can actually see what it's doing. But like now we have the red. If we wanted perhaps some yellow lights, we could throw those in. I want, you know, green and then like blue. And what I'm going to do is just set this to none for interpolation, so now we just have little blobs of color. And the banding, honestly, I kind of like. It looks quite fun, but it's not quite what we're going for. So what I'm going to do is, and this would make more sense if I had done the UVs prior to doing this, but here we are. This is the penalty I pay for not planning ahead. Basically what I'm going to do is just shrink down the UV shells, since there's nothing really, these UVs are extremely broken. But shrink down the UV shells, excuse me, so that, oh wow, that's fun. We can basically control which colors are being applied to a given object. And you'll actually notice that all of my UVs here are cut along every face, which is great. So I'm just going to do a move and sew and ignore the fact that these are going to be like crazy trippy looking lights. Probably not going to do this on all of them. I'll just show you the basic concept of doing this on some of them. Great. We're just going to, actually, no, we can do all these at the same time since these are not connected at all, and they'll just do, yep, that makes sense. Okay. I've gone crazy. So these should all basically be the same looking UVs, the same looking very broken UVs I would like to add. This is not appropriate UVing. And then basically what you can do is just sort of, like I said before, shrink these down so that they are only in one of the colors. And right now, so like they're all green. So what you can do is go through and select the UV shells. Be like UV shell, UV shell, UV shell. And I'm just going to kind of do these randomly. And I'm going to make these guys blue. And then UV shell, right next to each other. UV shell, UV shell. Like I said, I'm really just being super random with this. I have no plan in mind whatsoever. And these are all going to have a little red in them because of how I set that up. So to sort of go through and like maybe randomly grab UV shells. How many times can you say it within 10 seconds? And then do that, and now we have a little bit of randomization in our light colors. Like I said, totally better ways to set that up. I just, without planning, this is apparently what I end up with, and I have not distributed those red lights evenly at all. So what I'm going to do is go back into, because this is mapped into the wrong spot, so I'm going to go ahead and throw that into my transmission color and turn transmission back on. This is supposed to be like a 4-minute tutorial, and now it is very much not that. And don't forget to delete your history. So I'm just going to go ahead and make this white and turn my transmission back on. Oh look, we still have a trippy crazy light. And let's see how this renders. Probably terribly, but let's see. Oof! Well, that is certainly an effect that we have created here. Yes, good. And you still would need like ambient lighting, but these would show up nicely. You know, they make nice sort of reflections and stuff on the wall, I guess, depending on what you qualify as nice. But anywho, these are our lights. I assume that my render is probably broken and not showing up, so I'm just going to go ahead and pause this and let you guys see what this looks like. It's really weird, but it's Christmas lights, and it's at least, at a minimum, I guess, better than populating them by hand. The other thing you could do is make a few different versions of your light, basically with different materials on it, and then go through and populate them along the curve so that they were like spaced out. So basically you'd be doing 4 mesh networks where you do like the blue lights, and then the green, then the yellow, then the red. I am actually kind of curious to see what happens if we... so like this is already a mesh light. I'm just going to go ahead and see what happens if I make a new mesh network for this with that mesh light already established. And I don't have a lot of confidence that this will actually work, but I am extremely curious, so stick around if you are equally curious. Where's my little outliner doodle? I call it the outliner, and it's very much not the outliner, but whatever. And I do not give a crap about randomization right now. I would just like this to be rendered. Fascinating. So we'll duplicate the mesh lights. That's very good to know. And then what happens if this should be actually very interesting. I am now excited by this, and I wish I had done this in the first place. Alright, so let's take that mesh light and make it with like an exposure of like 40, because okay, that's not working. Or wait, are these lights just really tiny? I think they're just far away on my screen. I mean, either way, that should be showing through, and it's not. So I think, pending some kind of weird, I'm not entirely sure why this isn't working. I think something gets a little weird when you want like part of the object to be opaque and it has different materials, and like part of this is one object and it's technically being set as a mesh light. So I'm going to assume that something on there is like causing issues. But either way, apparently you can generate a bunch of mesh lights through Mesh, which is kind of convenient, I suppose. But anywho, that was lights.